Hi everyone, it's Ashley here. I just want to give you an update as to what's happening in the life of the King's Family Church. You know, as you hear on the news about the easing of restrictions and the coming out of lockdown, I just felt it's appropriate to share with you where we are at as a church in terms of reopening our ministries. It may seem on the outside like things aren't moving, and yet I want to assure you that behind the scenes there's a lot happening in the life of the King's Family Church, and I just want to share some of that with you today. I'm not going to go into any great detail because there's a lot that I want to share with you, and I don't want to have to do such a long video that I disengage with you. So let me share with you briefly some of the things that's happening. I want to assure you of the managing trustees and the newly formed leadership team's commitment to reopening some of our ministries. That said, there are some things that we need to have in place before we can safely and legally reopen some of our midweek activities. But that's probably a good place to start. Let me share with you a little bit about our midweek ministries. You know, when you hear on the news that restrictions are being eased from this date and the lockdown's going to end on that date, I just want to share with you that it's not quite always as easy as it sounds just to make these big, bold announcements. For example, you may or may not know that as a church we are governed not just by one piece of guidance, but by the nature of our organisation, we're governed by many sets of guidance, and that's really what takes time and energy, and it takes a lot of compliance to be able to legally and safely open up. What do I mean by that? For example, you're probably aware that there was initially a 33-page document about the safe reopening of a place of worship, and over time there's been many updates over the course of the last 6 months, well, since the 4th of July, changing as things change the guidance for churches. But as a church, we are not just governed by that places of worship guidance. For example, in other sectors in our community, pubs and cafes and takeaways, they're all governed by a set of guidance specifically relating to hospitality. That is one piece of guidance that they have to adhere to. And then other venues, leisure venues such as theatres, cinemas, football stadiums, leisure centres, gyms, all those kind of activities. They also have a set of guidance that relates to that leisure industry. And again, that's the one thing that they have to focus on. And yet, you know, as a church, we kind of have we have to comply with all these different sets of guidance for different reasons. For example, our Sunday service is governed by the places of worship guidance. Our coffee house is governed by hospitality guidance. And often we are governed by sets of guidance rather than just one piece of guidance because of the nature of what we do. And that's further complicated by inconsistencies across the sectors. For example, it would be legal and to reopen our Connect Coffee House when it's safe to do that. And we could invite you in to have coffee in our Connect Coffee House. And yet still, as at the time of recording, we are not permitted to meet for coffee after a service on Sunday. That's the type of inconsistencies that we are having to wrestle with as we prepare to extend our midweek ministries. But let me give you an update then on the things that we're going to reopen and an idea of when. There are so many things that we want to reopen. The first thing that we want to make inroads in is Connect Coffee House. We recognise that over the course of lockdown, fellowship has really been the thing that has been problematic for many people and for us as a church over the course of the lockdown. And so we are looking to reopen Connect Coffee House. We are planning to do this as soon as we can, as soon as it's safe to do so, after the 21st of June. That's the next stage of the government's roadmap. That's on condition that we can have everything in place to do that. Representatives from the managing trustees and I met with Linda Medici, our Connect Coffee House coordinator, with a view to let's finalise the things that we need to have in place to safely reopen. And so we spent some time looking at that this week, and we are in the process of really starting to rebuild everything that we need to have in place for a safe reopening, all being well, soon after the 21st of June, when we've had these things in place and the government moves to, or intends to move to, the next stage of the reopening. When we do reopen Coffee House, it will probably be again on Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays. They will be for 2-hour sessions initially until we can build up at the times again. There will be a limited menu. It's likely to just be refreshments and coffee and cake or biscuits or something like that. We want to reopen cautiously and safely, but we do want to provide a facility where we can open up for Connect Coffee House. Before we reopen to the public, we are hoping to open for 2 or 3 weeks, specifically for church family, so that we can make sure that what we do works well before we fully open and extend to the public. And so we will be inviting you to come and have coffee with us at the time that we reopen Connect Coffee House. In terms of our toddler group, we've realised, and this is common amongst the churches, that children's work is probably the most problematic and difficult of ministries to safely reopen. And so for that reason, at the moment, we're not intending to reopen our toddler group anytime soon. We will need to explore that again when we get there, but at the moment we need to focus our energies on reopening church appropriately, reopening Connect Coffee House and other things, and so therefore we're not in a position to reopen Toddler Group anytime soon. And the leadership team do want to explore if that is the right way of reaching and meeting the needs of families in our communities. And it may be that that has changed over the course of lockdown, so we will be carrying out a review of our toddler group before we reopen, but we do not intend to open our toddler group anytime soon until we can reach the point where we can carry out that review and then make sure that we are effectively meeting the needs of the families in our communities. As a leadership team, we explored the encounter prayer nights that we used to have before lockdown, and we've considered our Discover Bible study nights and our hangout groups, our social events. And we do have a commitment to meeting together in church again for prayer, meeting again in church for Bible study, for what we call Encounter and Discover. We do want to reopen those ministries. We feel that they are fundamental to spiritual growth, and we want to maximize that by being able to live stream and record some of those teaching sessions so we can share them as a church, and I'll touch on that later. But we do want to reopen Encounter and Discover prayer nights when we can legally and safely do that, and we will be discussing that further in the coming days, and we will keep you informed. In terms of house groups, we're looking forward to the day when we can permit meeting again in person, but we're not there yet. You know that over lockdown, the government did require us to change the way that we operate, and we asked our house groups to connect using alternative methods through phone calls, through WhatsApp calls. And I know that there's some study going on, individual study that's being collated to help you stay connected, and we encourage you to meet over Zoom, and that still continues. we would love you to meet in person, but we're not there yet. There are things that we have to do in order to permit meeting again in people's homes, and we will get there. We are in conversations about when and how we can do that, but we endorse our house groups, and we want to actively encourage house groups going forward. Just to remind you that it's still not permissible to have contact with people on the church premises. We want you to try and understand the government policies that relate to your own personal circumstances and those that relate to church, and the difference between the two. For example, there's a real contentious issue about whether people should hug again now. In certain situations, the government are saying you people can hug, but they're saying that there's all sorts of guidance around that. I just want to reaffirm that we want you to understand government legislation on social distancing, and certainly in church, any guidance that relates to you personally, to hugging and touching, that's still not permissible in church, in a places of worship. That comes under completely separate guidance. So our team don't want to have to say anything to you, and it's uncomfortable for you and it's uncomfortable for them. So please respect that hugging, touching, handshaking, all of those things are still not permissible on our church premises as a place of worship. And we would advise you to go check out the rules for yourself that relate to you personally in your private dwellings and in and around the community. So thank you for your understanding in that. Some of you will know that our housekeeper has moved out of Hucknall. They've moved home out of Hucknall, so the housekeeping role and function has changed. We've appointed Jane Hartsley to work with a group of 4 or 5 people to prepare the church every Sunday. The front room, the back room is thoroughly cleaned and prepared for us on Sundays, and I want to thank Jane for taking on that responsibility in a voluntary capacity, and also for organising people around her to prepare the church for us to worship in. If you have any concerns about the church, or if you see any housekeeping issues, then I'm sure Jane would love to hear from you. So thank you, Jane and the team, for preparing church for us. We made some real progress with our live streaming. It might not feel that way, but for a church with the dynamics that we have in terms of technology and resources that we have, even to be able to record or live stream is a massive step in the right direction. And of course, we've encountered our problems with internet speeds and equipment and failures and things, but we are well on the way to bringing more stability to our live streaming. And you know, we recognise that going forward, this is here to stay. Recording and online services and things are here to stay. There are situations where people are either ill or in hospital or on holiday or working or have family commitments and can't always make it to church but still want to engage with church. So recording and live streaming of services is here to stay. Similarly with our Bible studies, we want to make that accessible to all. And for the same reasons, there are genuine reasons why people can't be in the building at that moment in time. So we want to be able to share with you and help you engage with what the church is doing. So live streaming is here to stay. And we've had some donations recently in terms of officiating at some funerals, and 1 or 2 other donations that have come in to support the work of the church. And so we will be improving our technology so that we can have an online presence. And I'm hoping that we can have some much improved live streaming and recording by the 21st of June, when the next stage, intended stage of the government relaxing of the rules. We have had issues with our Wi-Fi network, which BT came in initially to try and resolve, and found 3 faults, and after fixing them we still experience problems. So they've now installed us what's called seamless Wi-Fi. So going forward, we've got a much more stable platform for being able to use the internet from our building. So we believe that that is, combined with investing in equipment and training people, that we will be able to provide a stable and live stream that will better help people engage with us. Live streaming is new to the church, and therefore we are looking for someone to perhaps step forward, come forward. If you've got a heart to be involved in live streaming and media, then we'd love to hear from you. It is where we need, we do have a vacancy for this new function of live streaming, and it's fairly straightforward, just some basic IT understanding, and we can help you fulfill a role in live streaming. If that's you, then we'd love to hear from you. This week is Pentecost Sunday, and we're going to hear a message, a pre-recorded message from Pastor Glyn Barrett, who's the national leader for the Assemblies of God. But I wanted to share with you something that's happening the following week on the 30th of May. You will have heard by now that we are establishing firm foundations, and we have appointed 3 people to join the leadership team, those being Mark Tennyson, Barry Hartley and Tembi Nwene. And on May the 30th at both services, we're going to be commissioning Mark, Barry and Tembi into and affirming them in their leadership journey on behalf of the King's Family Church going forward. So if you're able to come in person, that's the day to be here when we commission our leaders. We haven't forgot about our InPerson AGM. You know, in February we distributed some information relating to the financial position of the church, and we shared some information about the things that we were involved in as a church last year during lockdown. And as soon as it is legal and permissible, we will be holding the AGM. Month by month we are reviewing, can we change this, can we change this? At the moment we still can't hold an in-person AGM, but as soon as we can, I give you an assurance that we will be holding an in-person AGM. One thing that the AGM have made progress with is on the matter of racism and justice. And at the conference it was announced that the Assemblies of God have produced a flexible but unique toolkit to help churches to make sure that they understand and have considered and work in the environment of racism and justice. And a representative of the managing trustees along with a representative of the leadership team will be working with me to work through this toolkit to make sure that we take seriously the issues of racism and justice. Another of the key pillars of the Assemblies of God that I announced to the church on Sunday was the issue of church health. What is the health of the church like spiritually? And we're going to be taking time to assess our spiritual health as a church to give us a basis from where we're at and how we can improve the spiritual health of the church. And one thing I intend to do is to contact you in the next couple of weeks to actually ask you to consider a couple of things that would be really helpful. And one of them is to help us identify just one thing that is an obstacle or is a frustration that leads to the church not growing healthily or spiritually or in number. So one thing that you feel impacts the church, an obstacle or a frustration that impacts the church growing fruitfully. And at the same time, I'll be asking you to share just one thing that where the church is real, one of the church's strengths where we really are making a difference, or something in church that is fruitful and as an act of encouragement. So I'll be in touch with you as to how you can engage in that with us in the next couple of weeks. Just to give you an idea of what some of the things the leadership team are involved in, one of the first things that we've done as a leadership team is to sit and establish the circumstances relating to permitting marriage in the church. There's a legal basis for marriage and there's a spiritual basis for marriage, and we've discerned, prayed, discussed all the different circumstances in which a couple may wish to be married in the church, and we have formed some guidance relating to intended marriage that will help us assess when it is right and proper, and when perhaps we can't permit a marriage to take place at the King's Family Church. And so that's something that's a first in the church. In all the years that the church has been registered to permit marriages since 1959, this is the first time that in my lifetime I know that this procedures and process has been in place to do this well. And that's one thing that we've been doing as a leadership team. The leadership have been discussing other things. For example, we've considered being involved in platform ministry and what's required to be involved in platform ministry, things such as preaching, worship, leading communion. And we want people with a definite gift from the Lord to lead in ministry on the platform, and people who have a big heart and the right heart. The right heart is really important in that. We want people who are involved in platform ministry to be connected to the vision and to our values, and also to come under the spiritual authority of God and the spiritual authority of the church. And so that's something we've been discussing and working on spiritually. Legally, the managing trustees have been working on policies. We now have some of the key pillar policies in place. Health and safety policy has been finalised. The volunteer policy is reached conclusion, and that's started to be rolled out. The leaders have signed up to that, and we've started to expand that to the overseeing of the welcome team and the code of conduct policy too. We have 2 or 3 other smaller policies, including data protection and privacy policy that's final and complete, a conflict of interest policy which we operate in now as we meet as leaders and as we meet as a managing trustee team. So we really are starting to bring together the legal governance as well as the spiritual leadership aspects of church. We are now working on the IT, media and communication policy, so when using the internet and social media and such like. So we are making real progress in the area of having these policies that the Charity Commission require to be in good standing with the Charity Commission, and the Assemblies of God require for us to be in good standing with the Charity Commission to stay affiliated with the Assemblies of God. So we've made some real progress in the areas of legality and in spiritual leadership, and I hope that's encouraging to you. I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for their incredible generosity, and for those of you that have been able to continue to financially support the church over the course of the last year when it's been problematic to meet in person. We were reported at the AGM, the information relating to the AGM, that we are in a healthy place financially. Of course, we felt the impact of lockdown, but we are still in a healthy place. And I want to thank you for your incredible giving. For those of you that switched to bank transfers and direct debits, for those of you that have continued to be able to sow generously financially into the church, we really appreciate that. And this week we've made a claim for this year's gift aid, which we expect to return in excess of £5,000 back injected into church life. So thank you to all of you that gift aid. We are looking to offer the opportunity to make one-off payment donations, or to be able to make a donation online through online giving, and that's something we've committed to and that we are in the process of setting up. But thank you to everybody that's continued to support us financially. As a leadership team, we have agreed and committed to building a library of resources on teaching that are fundamentals in the church. Already we have the Overcoming Fear that's available in paper form or visual form on the internet that Mark Tennyson's prepared. We have our What is Christianity leaflet that's been explains Christianity. We've had that in place for some time now, and that's available in paper. It's also available on our website. And we're also in conversation and discussion about introducing a paper teaching on a model for evangelism, which will be really helpful for us as a church as we explore this really difficult area of finding confidence to share the good news. We're also in the process of identifying a missions champion and a governance champion who connects with the Assemblies of God for information sharing and event and support and resources to feed and filter back into the local church. So let me draw this to a close. I just felt that it really, we have a heart as leaders and trustees. We have a heart to improve our communication with our church family, and I hope this has gone some way to communicating with you where we're at, where we're going, why we do some things, and I just want to let you know that I'm so encouraged. I'm so encouraged from the place where we were to the place where we are. Yes, we've still got a long way to go on our journey, but we are making real progress, and I want to commend everyone involved in all of those processes, managing trustees, the leadership team, and to you as church family for your ongoing commitment to the life of the King's Family Church. And we look forward to a great future, don't we? We've got a clear vision, we have a clear structure, we are intentional about what we're doing, and we believe that if we follow God's plan, follow God's lead, become a people of repentant people, a people of great faith, called to live by holy living, holy principles, then we will see the outpouring of God's Spirit. What better time than Pentecost? I pray this might be a day one moment where it's the start of a blessed future for this church. Thank you. This has been a bit clumsy to put together. I recognise I've not been great with words in some places. I guess you get the heart of where we're going. So thank you for listening. Have a blessed weekend. Come join us if you can. Pentecost Sunday. We're going to have a great time together in the house of God. Lord bless you. Amen.